Hello and welcome to the first episode of Magic the Chattering with me, your host, Demir today, Don tomorrow. To start the channel off on a strong foot, I thought we would do a good old-fashioned set review. This week starting with the recent release of Thunder Junction, Magic's newest Wild West-inspired set. With this full release this weekend just passed, I thought it would be a good idea to look at the commanders from this set and evaluate the power levels, interesting pairings and some deck inspiration. So let's jump right into it, starting with the commanders from the pre-cons. We'll be going alphabetically, so first up is Eris, Roar of the Storm. Eris, Roar of the Storm is 8, a blue and a red for an elemental warlock who is a 4/4 with flying and prowess. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess. First impression is that it seems quite expensive. Yeah, it's got a cost reduction attached, but the each different mana value clause makes it a little restrictive. If you can keep it for a turn cycle or two and really take advantage of the each turn clause, those flying prowess dragons can prove a huge threat for the table. I think if you're going to build this, you're looking anywhere between a 5 and an 8 power level wise. I do think the pay mana value clause makes it unlikely for CEDH, however I could be wrong. Maybe with enough discard and surveiller support it could be viable. Now on to the next card, we have Felix 5 Boots. Felix 5 Boots is 2, a black, a green and a blue for a 5/4 Ooze Rogue with Menace and Ward 2. If a creature you control dealing combat damage to a player causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Now memes aside, this is a pretty strong commander. Probably should have called him Felix 5 Swords because boy does he hold swords well. Feast and famine, hearth and home, whatever flavour of sword you like, Felix will thrive with it. Any ability of a commander that cares about something that you would likely have in a deck anyway is always good value. Building around him is incredibly versatile. Do not discount the rogue subclass on him. I have an Anawan Ruin Thief deck and I'm very tempted to add Splash of Green and run Felix as the commander. Many rogues care about combat damage already, and that green may make the deck a little bit more versatile in terms of removal and recursion. I think Felix could easily be a high 8 power level, and I think lowest you could probably be a 6, because that ability is so powerful when built around. Ward 2 and Menace is just a cherry on top. Now on to our next card, Gonti Canny Inquisitor. Gonti Canny Inquisitor is 2, a black, a green and a blue for a legendary Aetherborn Rogue who is a 5/5. Spells you cast but don't own cost 1 less to cast. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library, then exile it face down. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. Now Gonti's ability is very niche. Good card selection and cost reduction is good value for 5 mana. This is a deck that theoretically scale with the game you're playing. Casting your opponent's cards means you should be at their power level more or less. Lots of cheap evasive creatures, play your commander, and the game plan's online. Because of this scales with your opponent, I think it could cap out at about an 8. In CEDH pods it'll just be too slow. On to the next commander. Kiri Talented Sprout. Kiri is 1, a red, a green, and a white for a legendary plant druid who is a 0/3. Other plants and tree folk you control get +2/+0. Beginning of your post-combat main phase, return target plant, tree folk, or land guard from your graveyard to your hand. Kiri is maybe 1 mana overcosted in my opinion. The miss and black that tree folk decks tend to have does feel like a miss. However, the ability to bring a creature back from your hand post-combat is good value. I will say I struggle to see a home in high-powered pods for Kiri. The ability just doesn't feel impactful enough. There could be an argument to play her on a landfall strategy, as she does have the option to bring a land back. But the options for landfall commanders are so plentiful, and it feels like she's 4th or 5th choice in that regard. Power level anywhere between 4 and 7 I think. 8 might be a stretch because of how little impact Kiri really has on the game. Not the most exciting of cards, but I'm sure it'll get played in some pods. Anyway, up next, we have Olivia, Opulent Outlaw. 1, a red, white and a black for a 3/3 vampire assassin with flying and lifelink. Whenever one or more outlaws you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are outlaws. 3. Sacrifice 2 treasures, put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. On first read, this card feels exceptional. However, most treasures you're ever really going to get off it there. 3 in a typical 4-player pod. That's nothing to complain about, but it's not an immeasurable advantage. Olivia gives good value for a good mana cost, and the second ability can win you a game. A solid commander, 5 to 8, but I don't think it's impactful enough to CDH. Next up, we have Stellar Lee Wildcard. Stellar Lee Wildcard is a 1 blue and a red for a legendary creature, human rogue, 2/4. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Tap. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you cast 3 or more spells this turn. Now this card feels very well balanced. 3 mana for a body that will impulse draw your cards, with the added copy ability after 3 instant or sorceries being cast is icing on top. Easy to build around. Plot, suspend, and rebound are all abilities that are definitely going to be your friend with this commander, allowing you to reliably use that second ability. Overall good design, if not a little boring. I know there's only so much you can do with spell slinging commanders, however this feels a little redundant as fuck effects are very easy to come by these days, without the restriction of having 3 or more spells to be cast. Overall though, I think it's a solid commander choice for spell slinging. Easy 6 to 9. I think you could see a CDH list using Stellar Lee as a commander, but I'm not convinced it would be super powerful. Next up, we have Vihan Goldwaker. A red, a white, and a black for a 3/3 dwarf warlock. Other outlaws you control have vigilance and haste. Begin the combat on your turn. You may have treasures you control become 3/3 construct, assassin, artifact creatures in addition to their other types. Until end of turn. I do really like this card. I think its power level is quite high. It certainly has the power level to be a CDH deck. However, it does feel as though there's only really one way to build this deck. Loop and Dockside Extortionist. Play Vihan, turn your millions of treasures into creatures and win. Now that's a very powerful strategy, and one that I'm sure we'll see at CDH tables, but it does feel like that's where Vihan's commander journey ends. Realistically, how else do you play this deck other than make a lot of treasures, turn them into creatures, and win? If that's what you enjoyed, then go ahead, but for me personally, after doing that 2 to 3 times, it would become a little repetitive. Vihan has the ability to be a very powerful, easy 7 to 10 on power level, I think. CDH tables will be seeing this card for a long time. On to the next card. And now, Yuma, Proud Protector. Yuma, Proud Protector is a 5, a red, a green, and a white for a legendary creature, Human Ranger. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land card in your graveyard. Whenever Yuma enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice a land, and if you do, draw a card. Whenever a desert is put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 4/2 green plant warrior creature token with reach. It is a 6/6. Now, make no mistake with Yuma, this does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a desert tribal. Yes, you could run it as a regular land shell, but you lose out on the final ability, and I think losing out on 4/2 tokens is not what you want to be. If this is the command you want to run, then I think it's best to probably just buy the precon. The rest of the commanders in this set have a few ways you can build them, but not really Yuma. The most relevant way is deserts, and they come in the deck. Play deserts, sack deserts, make some blunt warriors, and swing for the win. A solid include, but nowhere near CDH power level. A 4 to 7 at most, but I'm sure it'd be quite fun to play. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed that, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to see more of me, follow me on Instagram at Demir_TGT. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.